The first day of Microsoft and the FTC proceeding has concluded, and there was no shortage of news. We found out that Jim Ryan has not been truthful about Call of Duty exclusivity or having any worry about that happening. We found out things about Indiana Jones, like that it's going to be an Xbox ecosystem exclusive. We learned more about the FTC's whole strategy. There's a lot to go over, and I'm going to dive into it all right now. So we're going to talk about opening arguments at the end of the video, but let's start with the big stuff that you need to know about. First up, let's talk about that Jim Ryan quote. It would seem that Jim Ryan straight up lied about Call of Duty. Internal emails during the case revealed that Jim Ryan said he does not think Xbox would make Call of Duty exclusive. Further, he said that it's not an exclusivity play at all. They're thinking bigger than that, and they have the cash to make moves like this. I've spent a lot of time with Kotick, and I'm sure we'll see COD on PlayStation for years to come. I'm not complacent, and I'd rather this didn't happen, but we'll be okay. We'll be more than okay. Microsoft offered Sony a 10-year deal, content parity, and the offer allows them to get exactly the same thing Xbox will in every way. Now, this email is kind of a bombshell because Jim Ryan has been going all over the world wasting people's time saying that he believes the exact opposite of what he has said in these confidential emails. Now, that's interesting because he basically is the crux of the entire FTC argument, and the reaction to it has not been very kind. Here's Paul Tassi saying, as I have said many times, Sony is literally lying when they say they genuinely believe Microsoft will take Call of Duty off of PlayStation. Lulu Chang Maservi pointed out that, per my email, the CIO of SIE answered that question in Brussels. In his words, I don't want a new Call of Duty deal. I just want to block your merger. She continues on, actually, per Jim's email, it's not an Xbox exclusivity play at all. I'm pretty sure we will continue to see COD on PlayStation for many years to come. I'm not complacent. I'd rather this hadn't happened, but we'll be okay. We'll be more than okay. So the whole time, Jim Ryan has been talking about all of this stuff, and it's just nonsense. Like, he's been wasting regulators' time, and they have the emails in their evidence where he says it's not a concern for them whatsoever. So that was a big revelation early on in the case. But let's talk about a few of the other things that we learned. So on Indiana Jones is going to be an Xbox exclusive, but it was originally developed for PlayStation 5. Here's some quotes from the case. Indiana Jones, and some of this is paraphrased. If it's in quotes, it's a quote. But anyway, Indiana Jones will be an Xbox ecosystem exclusive and on Game Pass day one. Apparently, it was going to come to PlayStation 5, but they had a meeting with Disney as the executives at Disney were wondering what would happen after the merger. It was revealed that now the game is Xbox and PC exclusive. At the end of the day, Pete Hines said they liked the idea of bringing it to Game Pass day one, getting new players, and because it's on a strict timeline, getting the game to a higher level of quality than they could if they also had to put it on PlayStation 5. He talked about this a few times during the case. He talked about how having to develop for another Gen 9 console, which has come up a lot during this case, just means that it's harder for them to make the game the highest quality it possibly can. And before, when they were independent, they couldn't afford to miss. When we were independent, we couldn't afford to miss. When we were a part of Microsoft and Xbox helped them make better calls, that will make better games. Well, sorry, Your Honor, in those moments, we are a small independent publisher, right? Pete Hines is clarifying what he's feeling when he's independent and in those talks with Disney. He's like, early on when I'm in those talks with Disney, I can't really negotiate that well. Sure, we'll release it on all platforms, but once they have Microsoft's backing, they don't have to make it for as many platforms, and they can make a better product at the end of the day. Well, sorry, Your Honor, in those moments, we are a small independent publisher, right? We are not somebody who can afford misses or failures, right? We end up being independent and fighting publishers that are multiple times larger than you. We can't afford to miss. So we try and make sure we're stacking the deck in our favor, given the situation that we're in. So what he's alluding to is the idea that now that they're no longer independent, they are able to make decisions like making Starfield an Xbox exclusive, because at the end of the day, that will make a better game. I believe that's the next quote that I have lined up on Starfield exclusivity. Starfield was made Xbox exclusive so they can make it run the best it possibly can. Deathloop was made PS5 exclusive for sort of the same reasons. Starfield would not be coming out in September if they were still supporting the PlayStation 5 platform. So on the stand, they've been sworn in, like they're under oath. He's saying that the reason that Starfield is exclusive is because to them, their studio hasn't really changed in size. To them, that's how they can make the best experience possible. If you've enjoyed my coverage, by the way, of the case, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, hit that like button if you already are subscribed to help the video get shared around. Next quote, Xbox almost lost Call of Duty at one point. Bobby Kotick apparently made Microsoft and Xbox give them a better revenue share to keep Call of Duty on the Xbox platform. It was clear, and I typed all this up myself, so I apologize for any typos or whatever. It was clear that the new Call of Duty would be on the PlayStation, and it was clear that it would not have been good for Xbox if it wasn't there until the end of the year. Apparently, there was some talk about not releasing it there at all. He was clear that if we did not move beyond the current rev share, then he would not put Call of Duty on the new Xbox. Bobby Kotick coming in hot with the Call of Duty reveals, strong-arming PlayStation or strong-arming Xbox and saying, hey, look, our game will not be on your platform if you don't adjust your revenue share. Charlie Intel, they're a big Call of Duty Twitter thing. Here's their quote from the same case. Microsoft's Sarah Bond says Bobby Kotick made it clear if we did not move beyond standard revenue share that he intended not to place Call of Duty on Xbox. That happened in 2021 per Microsoft. Kotick forced Microsoft to agree to his terms on COD revenue sharing, which is why we've learned in the contracts that Call of Duty does get a little bit better of a revenue share than some of the other platform holders. Let me just see if I have anything else queued up here that I want to mention. Yes, there's a few more things coming. There's also a bunch of like little stuff. So we just covered off on how Xbox almost lost Call of Duty. There's a whole bunch of little things I didn't feel needed like a full breakout. Apparently, Phil Spencer, it was revealed he has the final say on game exclusivity. I suppose Satya Nadella could talk a little bit more about that. Xbox lost the console war. That is from Tom Warren, and a few people have reported on this. Basically, Microsoft says Xbox has lost the console wars. Ahead of the FTC case today, Microsoft is keen to show Xbox is in third place. Microsoft reveals Xbox had 16% share of console sales in 2021 and 21% of the console install base. Microsoft's strategy is no longer to win the console war, and that's where the Phil Spencer quote of out-consoling Sony came in, right? Basically, they've been about this for years, making a better ecosystem than anybody else. There was a quote early on in the case about opportunity lying where maybe Sony isn't seeing it. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but that's exactly what they're talking about. Creating a service like Game Pass, offering great content and offering great services bundled with that content is the way Microsoft decided to go, seeing that opening. New consoles are expected in 2028. I saw somebody tweet that. That was pretty significant. Outer Wilds 2 might not release on the PS5, but the decision has not been made yet. xCloud is apparently the least popular Xbox feature. So like not a lot of people are actually using the cloud gaming service. And when Sarah Bond was on the stand, she seemed to allude to the idea that, hey, you know, at one point we were talking about making a cloud streaming device, but it's just not popular enough for us to recoup our revenues. More on that in just a little bit. They spend more money than they make to stream games on the cloud. The revenue we get per minute, per hour from that is lower than the cost we get per minute, per hour. So basically what they're saying is they're paying more to run the servers and keep everything on than they are making by people utilizing that service. I have a bunch of other small notes. Well, call them big notes, but whatever. Matt Booty said no effing way when talking about releasing first-party IP on competing cloud gaming services in 2019. Who was it? Stephen Totillo said, FTC lawyer asked Matt Booty about the email sent in 2019. No effing way, Booty wrote at the time about bringing first-party games to competing services. This is presumably Exit K I wrote about earlier in the week. Booty tells Microsoft lawyer this was an old strategy. And he also talked about the Disney items and how games would be Xbox only. But let me just look at that quote again here. That was because of a frustration in the cross-examination. He said that's because of a frustration as NVIDIA was putting Bethesda games on their service without their permission. So basically, NVIDIA was just releasing Bethesda games without their permission. So he's like, no freaking way we're ever going to release on NVIDIA platform, on NVIDIA's streaming platform, right? Obviously, that was in 2019. He was salty about the situation. He kind of came around when $8 billion landed on his desk, I guess. Pete Hines genuinely seems upset about the exclusivity changes back in 2019 in those early emails. He thinks every game in the industry should be carefully considered for when it comes to exclusivity. Later, he realized this is empowering as they can focus on fewer platforms and make better games. So when you look at the emails from 2019 and the interviews with Timur Hussein over at GameSpot at the time, anyway, I think he's over at another thing now, but anyway, point being, he's kind of realized that, okay, well, with Microsoft's backing, we don't have to make it for every platform in existence. We aren't as big as the Call of Duty team, for example. Like he says, the Call of Duty team is much larger than the entirety of ZeniMax put together. So, and how they just can't make games on Call of Duty scale. So that comparison was sort of interesting. But anyway, I just wanted to say Pete Hines kind of seemed genuinely upset about the exclusivity arrangements, especially after it was revealed that Activision would be releasing their games cross-platform. So I found that it's kind of nice. Pete Hines genuinely seems to care about how games are made and how gamers are affected by exclusivity deals. The console is the smallest and slowest portion of the market. This is what Michael Pachter said when he visited the channel, right? Console is the slowest growing, and it's just not a big market. It's about mobile. And the whole argument was that mobile is this big growing market. Valve wouldn't sign the contract because they believed they should earn the business of their partners. They said they had no need to sign the contract, and they believed Xbox when they said they continue releasing their games on Steam. That's really commendable. Valve's whole philosophy is we don't need a contract. We believe that we have a great service and that we can earn your business by having that great service. And that is just their philosophy when it comes to allowing people to publish on Steam, and the rules that they make with RevShare, they're just like, that's how it is. You can take it or leave it. We believe we have a great service, and if you want to be here, you're welcome. I appreciate that. Microsoft has 26. This one was sort of weird. There's a data sheet that Sarah Bond had to comment on where they're like, Microsoft has 26 million content subscribers. I assume they're talking about Game Pass, but Sony has 3 million content subscribers. What does Sony only have 3 million content subscribers on? Like PlayStation VR? Like, what are they talking about? It has to be some correlation to the cloud gaming service, but it's very weird because Sony touts numbers of like 100 million. There's no sort of indication that Sony only has. Are you telling me Sony only has 3 million people using PlayStation Plus? That doesn't make any sense. Like, the data there is skewed, and that's an example of the FTC seeming to like fudge the numbers in their advantage. That was a strange one that even Sarah Bond's like, I don't know what this data is talking about. The FTC pointed out that NVIDIA or Microsoft could decide to renegotiate the contract if they choose to. Now, the reason that's important is because what the FTC has to prove is that there's a chance that Microsoft could make some sort of change that would, allow them to do partial foreclosure. And I'm going to go through my Cliff Notes version of the opening arguments because there were some interesting things said there. It's just going to be reading my notes and talking to you on camera now. So James Weingarten, he's been the FTC lead, and he opened up the case basically, right? His main argument is that Microsoft will be incentivized to make games exclusive. There's a lot of talk about Gen 9 consoles and how that's only PlayStation and Xbox and nobody else on the market. Microsoft also apparently excludes the Nintendo Switch per their own documentation. Now defendants are going to try and convince the court, this is what he said, this is quoted, that the market includes high-performance gaming PCs. Those are special built computers that people spend a lot of money, I gather, to buy to play video games. The price of a gaming PC or high-end chips that person buys offer different characteristics. Now, he says that PCs are much more expensive than consoles, but today, I have a build for a PC that is the min spec for Starfield, and I want to say it clocks in around $800. So if you can build the $800, you're looking at a $599 console. The prices were just increased versus an $800 PC to run a future game that's releasing Starfield, which is a very high-end, high-demanding game. And this is based on the specs that are on Steam. Let's say that rig costs $900, right? You're talking about a $300 gap from console to PC. Now that amount of money, $300 for a $900 rig, I think you could get Starfield running on a $700 rig, but we won't know. You're talking about a $100 to $300 price difference. So to say that high performance gaming PCs are special built computers that people spend a lot of money on, yes, you could. I could drop $4,000 and have a monster PC with a 4090 and the new AMD 3D processor and 64 gigs of RAM and two of the fastest 700 M2 hard drives out there. But that's like top of the line. For like a middle of the road, you're talking about $1,500. And with that, you can still get like a 3090 at that price point. You can build very powerful PCs for right about around the $1,500 mark. You do not need like the newest CPU to hit the benchmarks that they're talking about. But to be comparable to what the consoles can do, you can build those today for $700 to $900, depending on your components. And that's based on a community source build on PC Part Picker. So I really think that is an incredibly weak argument about the PC market. But anyway, there's a stronger way to make that argument, in my opinion, on the FTC's part. You could say these are very easy sit down and play experiences. Sure, you could build a PC that's comparable, but that involves a higher level of technical expertise to do so. I don't think everybody out there is going around building PCs. Anyway, on cloud gaming, so instead of buying a game, in physical form or even downloading it to your PlayStation 5 and playing it, this one, all that processing is done in the cloud and streamed to you. I found it ironic that they use the PlayStation 5 as an example as opposed to the Xbox when the case is against the Xbox. And it shows yet again in the FCC's opening arguments that they're really defending Sony, which it's a Japanese company trying to stop two American companies from merging. It's totally bizarre to me that the FTC is not defending the American company. They're going against their own country, their own country's people. It's so strange. On content, on ability, once Microsoft owns this content, they own it. They literally said that. On ability, once Microsoft owns this content, they own it. Yeah, no kidding. They will have the ability to withhold it, but they will also have the ability to raise rivals' prices. They can change terms and conditions of access to Activision content, or they can degrade Activision content on their rivals' content and services. They talk about total foreclosure, but there is also partial foreclosure. If this game has a neat player or tool or a thing you can buy, maybe you can only buy it if the game is on Xbox, and you can't buy that same thing if you're playing that game on Sony. So literally what Sony has been doing for the last 6 years. My tweet blew up when I paraphrased it because they literally describe what Sony is doing. And I think I spit there earlier. That's gross. Sorry about that, everybody. Microsoft's rebuttal. This is opening statements, and this is probably where I'll close out the video for today. I didn't mean for it to be this long, but there was a lot to cover. It was all day. It started at 8:30 and it went to 4:30. So anyway, Sony has been dominant leader for 20 years. They don't let any of their games be on a subscription service day and date, and they try and keep as many of their games exclusive as they can. This is from Beth, I believe it's Wilkinson, who did the opening arguments for Microsoft and Activision. If Xbox is allowed to buy Activision, now customers will have a choice. Xbox is looking to move people away from consoles and give people more games on more devices, meaning more people can play. They're looking for an opportunity to move people away from consoles and be able to provide more games and more devices to more people. Xbox literally cannot withhold Call of Duty because they have signed agreements with companies to not do that. The key argument Beth makes is that Microsoft wants to move into mobile. 94% of all gamers today play on a mobile phone. Now, this part sort of cut out in the audio, so I'm just going to say these numbers, but I'm a little confused about what she was outlining here. This part cut out. She said 210 billion in revenue for the gaming market, 283 million for console, 337 million for a PC, and it sounded like she said 148 billion for mobile. But then where's the other 100 million? Like, it's nearly 100 million that's not accounted for. So the math didn't make sense. But 94% of the gaming market is on mobile phone. No matter how you look at it, Xbox is third. If you use the FTC's definition, it actually gets worse for Xbox. She also pointed out that the FTC has never won, and they're protecting the dominant Sony and trying to maintain the status quo when one of the smaller players is trying to be more competitive. Even using the FTC's own math, their own definitions, and playing out their worst case scenario, Sony still owns 50.5% of the market, and Xbox has 49.5% of the market. It doesn't make sense. This case doesn't make sense. Even using the FTC's own math, Xbox still loses. So the FTC's play isn't to win. At the end of the day, here's what the FTC is trying to do. They want Judge Corley to approve the injunction and tie up the deal for the next 3 years, effectively killing the deal. Microsoft has been very clear. If we're tied up in litigation for the next 3 years and we have $70 billion just floating around in the air and a $3 billion termination fee, at that point, we take the $3 billion termination fee and everybody walks away. And I believe in that documentation we read the other day, the FTC could have to foot that bill if Microsoft gets their way. So I don't know who to be mad at, but the FTC is trying to block 2 American companies who want to merge from merging because they're worried that Sony might have to come up with a better deal for their customers. It makes no sense to me. It just doesn't. And look, PlayStation gamers out there who are upset that Starfield is no longer being developed for the PlayStation 5. Pete Hines got on the stand today and he said he understands that you're frustrated. Those are real emotions. And he also outlined why he feels that it's happening. They made the decision to pull it off Xbox at the end of the day, is what I gather from the hearing, because they can make a better game. Indiana Jones won't be on PlayStation 5 anymore because if they have to develop for one less SKU, then they can make a better game. Instead of splitting the team into 2 groups, they now just have one group basically making a PC version of the game and then figuring out how to get that to run on Xbox. And they can make a much better product at the end of the day. That's what he said on the stand. Would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. It was quite a huge day. I'll be releasing this video in the middle of the night. It'll probably be my video for tomorrow so that you're all caught up for the next one. We get another hearing on Friday. So there's another one tomorrow, and I'll be talking about that. And then there's another one on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, I want to say. And then Friday, we find out what's going to happen with this. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked my content, my coverage of this case, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. I just caught you up on a 4.5 hours of audio case. Just a very long case, right? So they took a bunch of, I think it comes out about 4.5. But anyway, 8:30 a.m. to I think they ended around 3. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for the members for supporting this. I really do appreciate you. If you want to become a member, click that join button right down there at the bottom of the screen. I appreciate it. I'm going to get out of here. Here is the documents from yesterday if you want to check that out. And then you're caught up on day one. Here's the documentation. There's more documents to go through. Plenty to cover over the weekend. I'll see you soon, everybody. Bye for now.